So I know it's only we're recording this on Wednesday, the week before the game week. So we still got some time to take a look more at what Tennessee does. From what you have seen and what you have heard, what do you think the matchup? Give me some matchup problems that you think. Is this so obvious? Oh, well, they have to stop the run. Of course, let's just get away from that one.
Right.
But give me some others that you think might be an issue.
Ohio State has to stop the defensive pressure of Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee has just got a great pass rush, even though people don't really realize Ohio State has more sacks this year than Tennessee. Ohio State has recorded 35 sacks, Tennessee's recorded 29, but Tennessee has 93 TFLs, Ohio State has 78 TFLs. As I sit here with my little cheat sheet in front of me, I haven't written my big preview piece yet. That's coming at the end of this week. So I've got all of my numbers in front of me. But I think that being able to protect Will Howard is important because Will Howard, with his 10 interceptions, obviously when he gets sped up, he doesn't always make the right decision, doesn't always make the right read. So with what Tennessee is able to do with its rush, I mean, I think that James Pierce Jr. is obviously a problem. He is very much an Abdul Carter type of player for Penn State. I think that, and Ohio State did a pretty good job of protecting him, but Ohio State also, again, offensive line issues. I think we're going to see offensive line 5.0 in this game. I think we're going to see a new configuration. Who? I'm not sure. I think that we could see. Josh Padilla move into center, and we move Carson Hinsman back out to guard. I mean, does it go just that far? Do we see an even bigger deviation? I don't know, but there's a lot of pressure on Ohio State to defend Will Howard, to slow down what they are able to do. So that is really kind of the biggest thing to me, is with what Ohio State is going to be able to do with that Tennessee pressure. I think on the other side of the ball, it's going to be Ohio State remembering that it has Jeremiah Smith. The last two games have been very quiet for Jeremiah Smith. There's been a debate out there whether or not he was a little more dinged up from the Northwestern game. He got his ankle twisted up pretty bad in a pile. Ohio State sent that play into the Big Ten. We never really did get any follow-up of anything came out of it. It looked like a dirty play to me, but I also know that in the pile, it's Lord of the Flies. Anything goes in the pile. But will he be able to find Jeremiah Smith? Everybody's like, well, Tennessee will bracket him. Well, then that means that Emeka Egbuka will have single coverage. That means that Carnell Tate will have single coverage. And I think it's also important that Ohio State is able to figure out who it is in the run game. And that all goes back to Ohio State's offensive line in a lot of regards, but the run game has been very pedestrian the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, even going back to Indiana, I mean, it was just kind of there. I mean, it wasn't even really worth mentioning. Ohio State is going to have to be able to run enough to keep Tennessee honest, in my opinion. But on the flip side, I think Ohio State, a lot of people want to sit there and say that Ohio State is a stock that is like completely falling, and that's fine. You can say whatever you want there, but I mean, Ohio State is still 17th in the nation in scoring offense. It's still 38th in the nation in passing offense. I mean, and doing it against a pretty decent schedule. Again, as I said earlier, Ohio State has played 3 top 5 teams. Ohio State certainly, the Big Ten is not, 8 deep, but it's a zero-sum game. If you have 4 teams at the top of your conference that are winning all of your games, everybody else is losing games by result, because you can't sit there and have more wins than slots. I mean, so it's going to be a good game. I think Ohio State's going to be challenged. I think anybody who's expecting, a 15, 18, 20-point laugher in either direction is probably going to be disappointed. This is a game that feels like a one-possession game to me.
And and right now, I think Ohio State's a 7.5-point favorite. Tennessee's about a little bit over the 2 on the money line. But I do think if there is a 2-score win, I do believe it's going to be Ohio State in my mind. And I know everybody's already comparing what happened with Ohio State a couple years ago when they lost, and then they came back and they almost beat Georgia, and so they could do it again. But things are a little bit different. You can't I still think that comparison's a little off, but I can understand why people are doing it. But I do believe that they can come back from this because there's just too much talent on the team. And I also look at this as Ohio State has a major advantage where they have an experienced quarterback against basically a redshirt freshman playing at Ohio State in the biggest game of his career. He's never played a game at Ohio State before. He has no idea what he's about to. I know he's played on the SEC before, but playing at Ohio State is also very different, and especially in a one and done situation, which nobody's ever played in this type of situation. You've played it with the semifinal playoff deals, but never in this environment before. So that's why I like Ohio State. I think if they lose, I think, like I said, I think it's all up here, and it just means that they just weren't able to just figure it out mentally. But there's just too much talent on the team. They're just more talented than Tennessee. Even before, everybody knew going into the season they were more talented than Tennessee. They're still more talented than Tennessee. Now they're at home. So again, I just think this all comes down to whether or not they're psychologically going to be in this game or not.
Yeah, Nico on the road has not been a great quarterback, at least not compared to what he's done at home. In road SEC games, 67 of 108 attempts, which is a 62% passer, 773 yards, which is 7.2 yards per attempt, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Of those 5 touchdowns, 4 of them were in the Vandy game. So if you took Vandy off of the equation, he's really kind of been very middling on the road. In terms of on the ground, 37 carries for 98 yards, sacked 12 times. So obviously a lot of sack-adjusted yardage right there. Even Dylan Sampson on the road has not been the same guy in SEC road games. 90 carries for 511 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's 127.8 per game, about 22 and a half carries per contest, and that even was a little bit stat inflated with Vanderbilt being a 178-yard game. So again, I've got all my numbers in front of me to write my piece. I've spent 3 days pulling every darn number I can find, and if it were only that simple, I'd be living in Vegas, drinking a Mai Tai right now, going to the sports book, collecting my money, and living my best life.
Well, look, I mean, it's interesting you bring that up because you look at it, they have only played 4 true road games. Oklahoma was one of them, but I mean, that was like their SEC opener. So in my mind, they're still a Big 12 team. Then you've got Arkansas, who they lost to, and then you have Georgia and Vanderbilt. So you mentioned Vanderbilt, like you said, draw a line through Vanderbilt, and you've got Oklahoma, Arkansas you lose to, Georgia you lose to. And by the way, I'm looking at the stats here. In the games against Arkansas and Georgia, those were his 2 worst yards per attempt games by far. He averaged 5.4 yards per attempt at Arkansas, 58.6%, 158 through the air, no touchdowns, no interceptions. At Georgia, 60%, 167 through the air, 5.1 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, no picks. So I'm sorry, but that's a huge difference. And again, now you're asking this kid and this team to go to Ohio State and do it and play their best football and do something they haven't done all season. And that's play a really good game on the road. I'm not saying it can't be done. We all know it can be done because the kid's talented. The team is a good team. They're in the SEC. We know all that. But the numbers and just the overall again, you match these 2 teams up, and I honestly just don't think there is a big difference in me believing that Ohio State can't win or cover this game. And I think we'll find out early. I think we'll know early in the game because I don't see them kind of getting off to a slow start and then all of a sudden, we're just going to bust out in the second half. I think if they are in this game early and they come out of the chute early, they could take a quick score or 2 early. I think they might even, like I said, win the game by a couple scores.
Ohio State's a very slow starting team. I took the non-conference numbers out of both Ohio State and Tennessee for looking at their quarterly breakdown. Ohio State only has an 18-point advantage in the first quarter, 41-23, but Tennessee only has a 1-point advantage, 34-33. Ohio State's biggest quarter is the second quarter where it's outscoring opponents in Big Ten play, 9 games versus Tennessee's 8 games, 105-46. Tennessee's best quarter is the third quarter where it's outscoring teams 74-31. Tennessee actually has a deficit in the fourth quarter. It has been outscored 56-33, but Ohio State has only outscored opponents 37-36. You're talking about 2 teams that, though not necessarily dealing with a lot of cases of having to have a lot of high pressure fourth quarters, So it'll be interesting, but people are talking about Tennessee's scoring offense being this, that, and the other. I mean, if you take the 4 non-league games out, they're only averaging 25 points a game.
Yeah.
I mean, in Ohio State, if you take its 3 non-conference opponents out, is averaging 30 points a game. So, right there, maybe I should pick Ohio State by 5. Maybe the numbers bode well or something. But that's where those stand at. And on the defensive side of those numbers, just conference games only, Ohio State is allowing a touchdown less than Tennessee.
All right. Well, I only think there's 6 teams that can win a national championship. I do not believe Tennessee is one of them. I do believe Ohio State is one of those 6. We'll see if they can get it done. I think if you're thinking of betting futures championships, I would take a look at it. I'm not, because the bottom line is at least you'll know pretty quickly, because if they can beat Tennessee, then I think that's a big help, no question, psychologically. But then you play Oregon. And I think everybody knows right now, after what they saw on Saturday night, that Oregon, they're the best team in college football, and they deserve to be. Doesn't mean it can't be beat, because they can. And if anybody can beat them, and if anybody knows they can beat them, it's the Ohio State Buckeyes, because they were right there. Probably should have won, but they made too many mistakes at the end of that game. And now they'll get a second chance if they can beat Tennessee. And then if you do that, then all of a sudden you're in the driver's seat.